Welcome to the talk series on Guiding Lights by Zaggle. I'm Payal Gandhi Hoon, your host, bringing you up close for riveting conversations with some of the brightest HR leaders. I have someone with me who is a prominent and respected global HR leader, someone who is result oriented and is a dynamic HR professional. He has close to 3 decades of being an HR professional and chairing senior leadership roles at various professionally managed MNCs and reputed Indian organizations across diverse business sectors like manufacturing, automotive, electric supply, hospitality, telecom, and is now with India's most diversified media conglomerate. He has built and led HR teams and driven HR integration with business strategies to ensure human and business capital growth, and has been recognized with awards like OLX People HR Awards, People First HR Excellence Award 2022 for his professional contributions to businesses. On that note, I'd like to welcome Amit Das, Director, HR and CHRO, Bennett, Coleman Company and Limited, to be the guiding light today on this talk series. Welcome, Amit.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you so much for the nice introduction. And I'm delighted to be here to have this conversation with you for the next 40-45 minutes.
Likewise, Amit, it's absolutely a pleasure. So I'm going to get the ball rolling. My first question really, Amit, is what do you think has really led to your success as a HR leader? Over to you, Amit.
Okay, so let me start off by saying that, it's important for us as HR professionals to continuously, do a reflection in terms of what might have worked well for us or what might have led to certain challenges and pick up those learnings and insights for our way forward. So as part of the 360-degree feedback process from time to time, which I have got feedbacks from all my stakeholders, I got a consistent feedback that I have a very high degree of empathy and solutioning mindset with a high degree of business acumen as well. So I think that's what have always been helping me to sense the appetite of the business stakeholders and apply the kind of design thinking principles to empathize and provide that customized solutions which not only delight them but also create value for them from time to time. Also, I think my strong focus on the last mile executional excellence with razor sharp focus on success measures. And when I say success measures, it has to be tangible success measures, because unless something is measured, it cannot get done. And that's what has helped me to fulfill the strategic imperatives in a very collaborative manner. So in a nutshell, if I have to respond to your question of what has helped me or some of the traits that have helped me to be successful, I would talk about this.
Thank you so much, Amit. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be inspired out of what you shared. And I think now I'm going to move on to some hardcore business questions. You shared in one of your talks that one of the toughest decisions as a leader for you was to navigate a delicate and sensitive terrain of being compassionately ruthless in taking certain difficult decisions for a greater cause to manage business sustainability and also continuity of the larger employee community. So it'll be nice if you can shed some light on this particular challenge and how did you transform it?
Sure, Payal. So I think it would be, I think in the last 20 months or so, because of the pandemic chaos that we had, I don't think as a professional or as a human being in our personal lives, we have been through and this kind of an unprecedented challenge in our lifetime, okay? Which started off as a health crisis, but it soon snowballed into a kind of a economic crisis, which completely disrupted and rattled the entire world of business. And we saw a massive shift in our ways of working, and that had created a massive shift in the mindset as well across the organizations and across the employee universe. So we moved from a kind of a mindset where we no longer ask others that can we do this in person? Instead, we keep asking, do we need to do this in person? And that's what the pandemic, the remote working, the virtual digital work environment or the hybrid work environment has made the shift. But having said that, I would say that there have been moments in my career, which you mentioned about, where I had to experience a kind of a dharam sankat, where I had to navigate this kind of a delicate and sensitive terrain of being, again, what I mentioned earlier, being compassionately ruthless in taking certain difficult decisions, and specifically on few individuals. But that has been done for a greater cause, to make the larger ship afloat, to keep the larger ship afloat, to manage the business sustainability, and also for continuity of a larger employee community. But if I have to reflect back, I think I get enormous amount of confidence in my business foresight, and I feel a great sense of accomplishment when I find that I've been able to help the organization navigate through these difficult times. So it's extremely gratifying to, at the same time, get blessed by so many people around me who have been impacted and touched in their personal as well as professional lives through these behaviors and actions from my end from time to time. But if I may have to respond to your question in a slightly different manner, I would say that if I have to be very candid, the kind of challenge which keeps me awake at night, that would be the onerous responsibility to help the organization conduct business with a heart and conscience. Our ethical responsibility to continue demonstrating our core values while managing the life and livelihood of our employees. And for that, I think if we can do that correctly, we will continue to be remembered in future as an employer of choice.
Right. So, Amit, if I was to take the thread of what you shared, it might be nice to understand maybe in this context of the challenge that you mentioned, what exactly was the challenge? How did you turn it around? And what was the impact on the business continuity and also employees? So it might be nice to understand from that perspective, because like you took the leadership towards managing the situation.
Steve, I think that what the pandemic, taught us is that we keep talking about this change management in the world of business. And if you know the one of the models that we all have learned in our academic curriculum is a Kubler-Ross change management curve. I think all of us were going through that phase where any kind of change had to be driven either from the pain that you experience in your current existence, or the kind of disproportionate gain which you foresee by walking that dark tunnel and seeing that kind of a light and the brightness at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so I think we did a mix of both. Our pain that we had all experienced together when the pandemic hit us, when the top line plummeted, all of us had to immediately huddle around and look at cost management measures to manage the profitability of the organization. And that's what I meant when I said to keep the bigger ship afloat. For that, if we had to offload some of the passengers for ensuring sustainability of the larger employee community, we had to take those difficult situations. And that's what I meant by being compassionately ruthless. But at the same time, while we were doing certain, of these difficult measures, we ensured that whoever we had to let go, they were managed with kids clubs. We had provided all kinds of support for their outplacement, starting from making their CVs, making them more employable in the market, helping them prepare for the video interviews because they had to attend various video or virtual sessions from their future prospective employers because of the pandemic, in absence of physical interviews. So all those things were done by our talent acquisition team to handle each of these employees. And I'm very, very happy to share that 30 to 35% of those were actually successfully outplaced in other organizations.
Thank you so much. That was really indeed insightful. And I like the part where the team really came forth. Your team came forth and looked at nuances like, let's say, a virtual interview. looking at resumes, yes, resume building is one aspect of it, but also prepping them up and ensuring that almost 35% of your people have actually got placed and there is sustainability in their career path. So that's fantastic. And Amit, I'm also curious to know, in the course of your career, enriching career that you've had, what other challenge that comes forth? I'm sure because you've dealt with many challenges along the way as a leader. But is there any other challenge that you want to call out from a HR perspective and HR lens, which has had a tremendous impact on turning around the business, or maybe a people impact?
Okay, so I think when I reflect back my journey as a HR leader, I think it has gradually moved uh, uh, up the enterprise value chain, from being a business support to a business partner, which transitioned into a business enabler, and then what I see is as a business value creator. So, and that has helped me to build and lead large, diverse HR teams across global geographies from time to time, and manage that overall responsibility of this HR function in the context of integrating the HR function with a larger business landscape, and facilitate this simultaneous growth of human and business capital. And large part of my experience has been in organizational transformation, and that has definitely been full of challenges. And how effectively I have been able to navigate that landscape and convert those adversities and challenges into opportunities is what has actually helped me in creating value for the enterprise.
So, would you like to share any one or two instances where you managed to navigate the situation, and some lessons, leadership lessons that the HR fraternity can really take away from your experience?
See, there have been numerous instances, and from time to time, based on which organization, which context, business context, which geography, I had to play or wear a hat which is different from the other. For example, when I was in a multinational organization like Vodafone, where I was managing multiple geographies, multiple continents, and my role was to transit jobs from the operating countries, the main organization, to the shared service organization, very different. The challenges were how effectively you can transition some of the roles from the main operating countries to the captive shared service entities, which is again spread across 5 or 4 continents. So that was a different thing. So that's where I had to connect not only with the business stakeholders so that they don't feel insecure about this sudden change of their, I would say, the spans and controls and layers of their control, but how they see the value coming out of this transition. Okay, so it's primarily stakeholder management, and obviously the largest stakeholder obviously was the employees, who had to be explained the larger picture and make them connect with the larger purpose for carrying out certain activities, which help them to participate in that. So primarily I would say the common denominator which has always helped me to manage this challenge is to co-create along with the stakeholders instead of being prescriptive about it. I think that's the only advice I would give to the HR professionals, saying always co-create along with your stakeholders and act only when you see the appetite for that change, or at times you create that appetite instead of trying to be prescriptive and trying to say that this is what are the HR initiatives or the interventions which we think would help the business.
That's very helpful and insightful, Amit, because what I see or hear from you is co-create a certain vision with the key stakeholders and also share the context and the purpose for the employees, because then embracing the change or the change really in terms of their career or their role change, or it could be a cultural context with change in the incident that you were sharing right now, that becomes easier and they embrace it willingly. And now I'm going to move on to some HR trends, Amit. And this is pretty much in your own words, like you shared. You said that the role of HR is tremendously, changing and evolving, and it's moving from personnel management, being a personnel management department, to an HR administration department, to now being a human capital strategy department. And obviously, it's playing a huge role in the business success through disruption and innovation. So it'll be nice to know your views on the evolving role of HR in spearheading organizations, especially in the VUCA world context.
So, since we're talking about the VUCA world, that it has been talked about and much abused word, all of us are aware. But what has changed over a period of time? All of us know this is the first time this is not the first time that we are experiencing or witnessing change. It's been happening for thousands of years. But what is so different about the new change that we are talking about? I think it's the only change is the pace of change. The speed of change has enhanced tremendously. And that's where we are experiencing the new normal. And that new normal, the time period at which we are experiencing this new normal has also shortened. It has also got curtailed, because if you look at the world of business and the Fortune 500 companies, the average lifespan of those Fortune 500 companies has shrunk from 35 years to 18 years in the last 50 years. 85% of those global corporations don't exist anymore in the last 50 years. And these are large global corporations which are part of the Fortune 500. And that's how fast or the speed of change has actually happened. And that's the different VUCA that we are witnessing today. And the other thing which I keep talking about is the C in VUCA has moved from being complicated to complex, where your human brain can no longer cope up because the law of probability cannot predict the future anymore. And that's when you need the machine intelligence and the infusion of the right technology to help the human brain to cope up with this fast change that's happening in this new VUCA environment. So we have been hearing about this new normal, phygital workplace, hybrid work for especially in the last 24 months during the pandemic. So when you look at the larger picture, I believe we are moving towards a future where the metaverse will be a very strong and important pillar in our way of working and interacting with each other, be it in the workplace or in the personal lives. So while this is a change that we may not witness immediately, but we will move at an extremely fast pace towards this future reality. The other big change, what we are already witnessing or will witness more and more in the near future, is a greater emphasis on this, what I said, customization and hyper-personalization at each and every employee lifecycle touchpoint. So today we have a multi-generational workforce across 4 or 5 different generations, especially in a company like or a group like us, where we have 5 different generations of workforce, be it the Gen X, be it the millennials, be it the zillennials, or be it the Gen Zs who have just started entering the workplace. That one-size-fits-all approach that HR has been stuck with for a long time will give way to this kind of a n=1 future, where the need for every individual is different, and hence every problem that HR revolves around has to come up with a kind of a personalized solution. So this would require the HR professionals to build a mindset of a solution architect, in my mind. So the role of HR, I think, has transformed from having a seat at the table to having a voice at the table. That's important. That's a big shift. And the pandemic was a big opportunity for HR to lead from the front, making organizations future ready and helping business stakeholders with the most critical asset, which is the people. I think, and that's where we are seeing the simultaneous transformation, which you mentioned about, is the WWW, the workplace and workforce. I'm very clear that the future of work, it will be driven by something like MySpace, which will be location agnostic, which will be technology enabled with 24/7 access and connectivity. I think that's the future agile, networked and collaborative workforce who will be digitally connected and which actually will transform these 3 Ws that we have been talking about, the workforce and workforce. And that's the big trend that I think which plays in my mind and which I think very vehemently, which is going to happen in the near future.
Amit, that was truly insightful, and I'm sure a lot of people who are aspiring to join HR or have been in HR are going to rethink about the competencies, the core competencies that they really need to work on with a vision to sustain their career and to also ensure their growth in the HR fraternity. So, on that note, I think the other thing that you mentioned, which was interesting in terms of the emerging HR trends, like you said, was hyper personalization. You mentioned about one size never fits all, and that's going to be something that HR consciously needs to focus on. And to also subscribe to that or substantiate that, a recent Gartner study indicates that 85% of job candidates felt that it is important to be seen as a person and not just as an employee. Something that you have been constantly in a different way reiterating when it comes to showing compassion, empathy. Maybe those are softer values, but they're really the hard stuff. So, I'd like to know what are your views on how rewards and recognition and employee benefits can play a role in impacting and sustaining employee experience via the hyper personalization approach.
I'm sure you must be hearing about a lot about the total rewards framework, okay, which goes beyond your salaries, it's salaries plus plus, or the compensation plus plus. And that's where the various reward and recognition elements, the various investments that the organization make on your health and well-being, and we talk about catering to the mind, body, and soul. It's a total wellness quotient that we keep driving in the employee universe that comes into play. What comes into play is the investment that the company makes on the engagement interventions in the organization. The intervention and the investment that the company consciously make in helping employees fulfill their larger purpose in life. I think that's what makes us bringing life in the employment than expecting an employee to have a lifelong employment. I think that's a big shift that's happening in what we see in the new age workforce that's entering the workplace, or that have already started working with us for the last few years. They are not looking at an employment for a lifetime. They're looking at life in the employment as long as they're employed with a particular organization. They are trying to have that kind of flexibility in the organization or the organizations that they are associated with, where they can have opportunity to dabble with multiple careers or multiple roles, whether within the same organization or at different organizations. And that has given birth to that platform economy, or we call the gig economy. So as an organization also, we have been consciously making that fundamental shift, bringing in the focus or the arc light on the gig talent ecosystem. And it's a win-win at any given point of time, where the organization wins to provide certain cost levers and to manage the workforce productivity in an optimal manner. At the same time, it's also a win for the employee or the individual, where he or she has that complete flexibility to manage or get engaged in a role where he or she is passionate about. And that can happen simultaneously with 2-3 different organizations or in the same organization. So that's a big shift, and that's where the hyper-personalization, hyper-customization comes in when it comes to managing this total rewards framework. Say, for example, within the reward basket also, it is not that everybody would appreciate a specific allowance or a specific reimbursement given for catering to some other things. Someone may be looking at some health insurance, someone may be looking at some vacation allowance, so there are different elements within the reward basket that we can play around with, which can help us to customize these reward baskets based on that individual's need and based on what drives the individual engagement as well.
Thank you. That was again very insightful and quite in alignment with the purpose of what the employee wants to achieve. So I think it's a win-win for the community, for the organization, for the employee to be doing what they want to do as they are working with the organization. As a guiding light, Amit, today, what is that one advice that you'd like to give to the HR professionals that's a must do?
Okay, I think if I have to talk about it, I think every HR professional, I don't think it's confined to any HR professional, it can be any business professional. You need to have clarity in your own mind. Okay? And that clarity would help you to drive your behaviors and actions. So don't wait for an opportunity, go ahead and create it. I think that one of the things that think going for the differentiating factor for the future HR professionals will be how well they demonstrate that agility, adaptability, critical thinking, and growth mindset to create a kind of anti-fragility, not only in themselves as professionals, but also to the business ecosystem at large. But what I would advise them not to do is to not to get complacent in their known zone of being, which does not allow them to step into that uncharted zone and create impediments to demonstrate those creative disruptions by experimenting with some new innovative ideas. And they should not be afraid of failure, and they should constantly learn from the insights. And they must not try to, at the same time, emulate behaviors and actions which might have given them success in the past. Because they have to remember very clearly, the future will never be a photocopy of the past.
Beautiful, very well said. And I think nature has been quite at the helm of this, teaching us with their change and embracing change. What is your sign-off line for everyone?
I would say that keeping in mind the digital disruptions that's happening all around us, organizations who can successfully navigate the technology and at the same time maintain that human touch while being agile are the ones who will eventually emerge as winners in the future.
That's quite a powerful note. So thank you so much, Amit, for this really riveting conversation on the Guiding Light series by Zaggle. It's been an absolute pleasure to interact with you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Payal. It was lovely, talking to you for the last 45 minutes. It's a pleasure. Thank you.